I want to share a little bit about why I've chosen to start painting with acrylics and oils. It's a technique that has completely transformed my artwork. If you're curious about how it works and why it makes such a difference, then stick around and hopefully you'll find this video interesting and inspiring. Before we get onto the painting process, first I'm gonna need to plan an idea of what I actually want to paint. I'm planning this one old school with a simple pad and pencil. So we've got the sketch done. I'm pretty happy with the composition. I'm going to play around with it a little bit more on the actual picture. Now I've got to get the drawing onto the panel. I used a combination of reference photos and digital painting on my iPad to create a more detailed plan of the deer, which I then transferred onto the canvas. Now we've got that initial drawing in, I can start painting. But first, I'm going to need to spray it with some fixative. I've started priming most of my paintings with burnt sienna. It just removes that distracting white and also helps the next layer of acrylics go on a little bit more opaque. The sketch is done, the canvas is primed, now let's add some colour. I'm using my very special Studio Wildlife brush sets for this stage of the painting. I'll put a link in the description for where you can buy my brushes. I'm starting blocking in this painting with acrylic paints. I'll get onto why a little bit later on in the video. Now I've got that acrylic layer done, I can go ahead and make a start with the oil paints, which I am so excited for. I didn't used to paint with oils over acrylics. In fact, I'm pretty new to oils as it is. I've only really used them for 3 or 4 paintings. Acrylic paints have been my go-to medium for so many years. I love them, they are absolutely fantastic paints to use, they are brilliant for realism, but as my skill develops and as I grow as an artist, this technique of using the oils over the acrylics has completely transformed the way that I paint. And I'll tell you why this technique is so useful as soon as I get this background done. With the background finished in oils, I have a choice to make. I have already rendered the grass in acrylics, so I can leave it as it is, or I can choose to paint oils over the top. Spoiler alert, I go with the oils. I just thought the acrylics were a little bit sharp and in focus. I applied the oils quite thinly and only barely covered the acrylic layers underneath. The oils allow me to soften those details and merge the foreground a little bit more with the background. I want the deer to be the main subject, so I don't really want too much sharp detail anywhere else. I'm going to come back fresh in the morning and get started on the deer. I'm originally an acrylic painter, and I am so much more confident using acrylic paints rather than oil paints. I've spent the last 15 years learning and experimenting with acrylics, and I'm pretty confident that I can manipulate them in exactly the way that I want. But oils are a completely different story. So why am I choosing to paint with oils over the top of acrylics? And the simple answer is, I constantly want to challenge myself, push myself out of my comfort zone, and try to get an understanding of as many mediums as I possibly can, which is probably the main reason why I've started using oil paints more. But if we forget about the personal growth aspect of it, why do I choose to paint with oils over the top of acrylics? Why didn't I just paint the whole thing in oils to begin with? Well, let's start at the beginning. Let's start with that foundation, the acrylics. These paints are awesome because of how fast they dry. It means I can get those first couple of layers down really quickly. I can get all of my colours in place, and I don't need to wait ages for each layer to dry. And because it's so quick, I can get all of my ideas down so quickly, and if I need to, it's really easy to adjust the compositions and the colours. But here's the thing that I'm starting to realise. While the acrylics are great for the initial setup, they just don't have the same depth and richness as oil paints. Actually, that's not exactly true. You can create acrylic paintings that are just as bright and just as vibrant as oil paints, but it takes a lot of experience, a lot of time, and a heck of a lot of layers. And there are still some types of paintings that I would always choose to use acrylics rather than oils to paint with. But for paintings like this deer, using the oils on top of the acrylics is really where the magic starts to happen. Because of how slowly those oils dry, I can work with them on the canvas for so much longer. I can create much more variation between the colours and create really smooth transitions between the edges. I'm trying to push myself to create more lifelike paintings. Not photorealistic, but more about the feeling, the experience, the story and the life. Almost as if you're stepping into the painting. And oils with those softer brushstrokes and that blending help me achieve that much more easily than acrylics. When you step up close to the painting, I think that oils give a much more mystical, almost dreamlike appearance to paintings. Like when you get really close and you're like looking at the brushwork. Whereas acrylic brushstrokes are a bit sharper, they're more logical, more industrial looking, which is absolutely perfect for photorealistic paintings. But as I'm moving away from photorealism in some of my work, that beautiful buttery texture of the oil paint, it feels like I'm sculpting a brand new world out of the paint. I don't think I'll ever do just an oil painting. I love both mediums, and this technique combines the strength of them both. The acrylics let me work quickly and make changes on the fly, while the oils let me add that depth, that richness, and those final touches that make the painting come to life. It allows me to work efficiently. I can explore, experiment, and then refine and perfect. I absolutely love this technique, and I will be using it for a lot of my future paintings, at least until I find something new to challenge myself with. I hope this video has given you a little bit more insight into why I paint with oils over the top of acrylics, and hopefully it's inspired you to want to give it a go too. Anyway, enough of the talking, here's the finished painting.